So as Diana introduced, I'll be talking about a Polish open language model, and I know it's maybe an interesting idea for the presentation for international audience to talk about Polish model, but I think there are two bigger stories in here, and one story is what a community-driven project can achieve, and as it turns out, it can achieve a lot. And another thing is I strongly believe that it's important to have initiatives for independent models, and they are not only packing cultural heritage because they collect all data from languages and from countries, and they learn cultural ways in the ways that commercial projects focused mostly on English materials will never do. But also I think that even the country independence lies in there, because these models are not something that some external force will turn off. There are no servers in US that will be disabled if politics decide so. This is something that we can own, that we can have in countries, and make these models work for us. So I'll be focusing mostly on these two stories this time, not just on the fact that this is Polish model. However, to give you the reasons for the creation of the model, I'll have to start a bit with the Polish. But before we do that, I have to do a bit of legal stuff, because you may see a bit of overlap between the name Bielik Consulting, which is my company, and Bielik AI. So these are independent entities. Bielik AI is a open Polish model. It's created pro bono. It's open source. We'll be talking about all of that in the presentation. The Speaklish is a foundation that's handling the model, and they are the proper authors and the Bielik community. However, Bielik Consulting is real close to the Speaklish community and to Bielik creators. So we often talk, we go to conferences together, we sometimes do promotional work like today. I made the mistake of reading chat. So yeah, but exactly, yeah, it's a very close topic, and especially giving the circumstances into account. So great feedback, thank you. So we are basically independent entity, but we really like the community. We are really close with them. And we are also promoting the model because we think it's really cool, basically. So the story starts with this number. And this number is the percentage of Polish data in, I believe, Lemma-free training dataset. So it's not a lot. And this is the core issue here, that language models, large language models and commercial ones, are focusing mostly on most popular languages. And this means that, for example, Slavic languages are underrepresented in them, and all other minor languages aren't represented so well. And it roots from several reasons. One of them is data availability. Some of them is just the main needs, and basically language models are this big compressing machine that combines all the knowledge that we feed it. So it also has a finite amount of space to consume all these data. So you have to choose what's most universal if you are building a global project, but it may hurt the performance of these models in a local languages that telling from the list of the names, you probably all have tried models in your first language and noticed some issues, raising from just being not natural or not understanding culture in a good way to being completely off with our languages. So if you want to build a model, as a famous saying says, you have first to muscle up, you have to need to bulk first. So you have to gather all this information, all this data, and this is where Speaklish started with their initiative. They said that first they wanted to just collect the largest data set of Polish text, and their target was 1 terabyte of data. As you can see on this dashboard, it's already way over that. It's 3.2 terabytes as of this day. And it was completely open initiative. They wanted to create a legal, AI Act compliant, and open collection of Polish texts from all over the internet. So Also, it's not only Wikipedia, which is not very representative in terms of details of language. And this is open. If you want to, you can go to speaklish.org and visit their website and check their data sets. As I said, it's 3.4 terabytes of data, over 1 billion documents, and all other huge numbers that just show that this is a pretty big data set, and it's all contains metadata, so it's ready to use basically if you'd like to build the model of your own. And also there are many different categories. There are forums, there are subtitles, open lectures, etc., etc., etc. So also, if you want, you can pick categories that you are interested in and just download them. You can download all the information by installing a Python package from Speaklish, and there is a website that basically gives you all the details how to download the information, the data that you need, and which you may want to use in your projects. And this is what happened in January, actually between December 23rd and January 24th, where Chris Ociepa decided to try and build in his basement, basically, not basement, but within his company, to build a model. And it was a kind of proof of concept idea. He built this language model training package that, by the way, in some cases is more performant than NVIDIA's package for training large language models. And he decided to build a model that can be trained on a single card. It will be very small, 1 billion parameters, and it will be built on Polish datasets using Speaklish data. And basically, this is what he did. It was called apt3. While it was giving pretty good information in some cases, like here, the most important goal of man on earth is to live in peace, harmony, and love. It's the model answer. However, it also had some issues, and this is a famous treasure from the community's books, where to the question, what are chickens, the model answered, the chickens are not rectangular, they don't have wings, they usually have 4 paws, a blue mouth, they have wide shoulders, which allows them to run up, down, and even sideways. Yeah, so it wasn't perfect, but if you look at the grammar and the syntax, the Polish syntax, here is of course the translation of what it said, it's good, and it was working as a proof of concept, and it was interesting enough to follow up with building something bigger. So on the other milestone that happened on January 24th was achieving 1 terabyte of data by Speaklish, which was this huge milestone where they decided, okay, it's big enough data set to start training a proper model. And as I remind you, the original model was trained on the singular RTX 4090 card, so it wasn't anything big. But another thing that happened in the meantime was creation of the Helios in Cyfronet, and it's one of the biggest supercomputers in Europe, and one of the biggest, I believe, in the world. It has 500 Grasshopper 200 cards, so it's a huge machine that was brand new, and it was a beautiful combination of needs, because Bielik community that started developing by then needed a place to train their model, and Cyfronet needed a cool project to test their new hardware on. So they combined forces, and they started the journey of creating truly large Polish language model. They started with test suits. So in February, they developed large language models leaderboard. You can see some of the Speaklish leaderboards on Hugging Face. So they wanted from the start to test this model with people to check what's the response, etc., etc. Yeah, please don't hesitate to ask your questions. You can stop me anytime. I know I may have a big pace of speaking, but please just raise hand or just interrupt me. I'll be happy to answer the questions on the spot. So a few months later, on April 24th, the first version of Bielik was created. And the response was mixed. The main issue was that all of the journals started calling it Polish ChatGPT. And the only issue with naming this project Polish ChatGPT was that it completely wasn't the case. We in the community, the trainers didn't want to create a GPT because they knew it's much larger project, much larger model, and completely different use case. They wanted to create a niche model that handles certain tasks in Polish better than popular commercial models. And this resulted in videos like this. This is one of the very popular Polish YouTubers that speaks about technology. His name is Klawiter, and he created a video that's called Polish ChatGPT is named Bielik, and it's dumb. He was right, but he kind of missed the point with the target of the Bielik project. However, what this video did was this change in the curve of downloads on Hugging Face of the Polish model. So there is a saying, at least in Polish, that it doesn't matter how they talk about you; it's only important that they talk about you. And probably this was the case here. And at the time, the community grown with the hundreds and thousands of people, the downloads skyrocketed. And that was very important because having leaderboards in place and Discord channel in place, there was a lot of feedback and a lot of people trying Bielik for their internal projects. So they could do a lot of tests, of course, and on September create version 2. Let me quickly see the question. Yeah, they started with data from Speaklish. They did some interesting tricks, and I cover them a bit later in the presentation. But the Speaklish was the main core of the data. There are some synthetic data, but I'm not aware of any extracting strategies like DeepSeek did. So on September 24, so just a few months later, there was a Bielik version 2, and it was amazing. It was working really well. Here is one of the results of the benchmarks, and you can see that maybe it's not the best model, but the models that are better than Bielik are much bigger models. And version 2 was actually 3 models for if you account for 2.0. And the interesting thing was that they created few versions that were a bit different in the response mood. The one was very strict, so like only yes no answers. The other was very very fluent, and he was talking a lot and very poetic. And they decided to combine these two models and created 2.3 that was actually much better than any of these other models, and was the best version of the two. And as you can see, it's the next model that's above him is twice as big. And there are a lot of models like aforementioned Llama 3 that's much bigger and has worse performance than Bielik. If we talk about the size of the whole community that's supporting Bielik project, it's I think it was roughly 1,000 people at the time, but the main training community is roughly 30 people, I believe. I don't want to lie here, but it's much smaller number of people who are actually hold keys to the whole system, to crucial instructions and all the know-how. But there are a lot of supporters that are very important for the project, and they're not only doing benchmarking, but some other cool stuff that we'll cover a bit later. So Bielik 2.2 was also 2.0 and 2.3 was the first open model. The Bielik 0.1 the license wasn't allowing for commercial use, but version 2 was open to use by everyone. It has a website where you have chat where you can test Bielik online, and case studies starting showing up. One of the biggest implementations of Bielik is a simple language, and it's a model that started in Poznań, and it was used by clerical community to translate from clerical language to human language, and it was helping them a lot, changing these administrative documents into something digestible by a human being. And it was bought by the by Polish government. So Donald Tusk, prime minister, was talking about Bielik, and I think last year when he introduced the cooperation with Microsoft on certain areas with Poland. So basically, Bielik is used in certain ministries in Poland to help with understanding political jargon and their documents. Also, for the more independent projects, there is Gaius Lex, that's assistant for lawyers, and it turned out that untrained Bielik was better than ChatGPT-4 in terms of compiling the Polish legal documents, and this is basically the point of the project, to understand all these minuscule details in a language to make just performance on Polish data better. And this is not a huge difference, and the gap is closing. It's the current ChatGPT is very good in Polish, and also Claude and other big projects. But if you want to squeeze these other few percent, the Bielik is still the best solution you can get. And this is something you want to do if you are doing things on scale. So, for example, most of Polish banks are using Bielik, and I know this is a very unreadable picture, but it's the only picture we have where officially announced, one of the Polish banks, Bank Millennium, officially announced that they are using Bielik, and what's very cool, it was completely independent from the community. So community learned about this project only on the conference when they said, yeah, we started this project in a bank and it worked really well. And another project that was important for some of qualities of Bielik, I'll tell you in a second, were very important for this project of my companies and the Mean Solutions, our partners. And it was a project that was classifying tweets for disinformation. And it was very important for us to, again, have a language model that understands all the minuscule details to qualify sentiment properly, or really understand if the tweet is emotional or not, or is it sarcasm, etc., etc., etc. The question is, where did we gather data for training on the lawyer field? So the benchmarks you saw were just on the generic Bielik data set. It wasn't fine-tuned at this stage, but later the company did some tweaks in Bielik, and they used their own data sets to do that. Yeah, so what Bielik is, and what I think grows in importance as a new class of models is are small local language models. What does it mean? Well, first of all, we'll start with local, and by local I also mean open source. In May 23rd, there was the email leak of one of the Google employees that said that basically there is no mode of commercial models over open source, where the author gave a memo that said that basically open source community is catching up with all the commercial models. So actually there is the gap will be closing, and it was a pretty good. He was right basically, because you can see on this chart, on here there is measure in one of the many benchmarks, and here is a timeline, and you can see these red dots, which are commercial models, and green dots that are catching up with time. They are catching up with the quality of closed models, and the email was roughly created around here. So this is really how the field progressed. So right now it's possible to create open source models that challenge the bigger ones. And also what's very important is a lot of these models are pretty small. You have Mistral here, which is much smaller than Cloud Opus, for example, or DeepSeek or other things. So the other thing that's happening with the field is every 2 years we do certain revolution that allows us to drastically cut the size of the models, which allows the local communities to train them without money needed to train huge models like OpenAI models. And there are also honorable mentions like DeepSeek, which is open model that basically killed for sometimes stock exchange in US. So these open models. Of course, I know that there is some background story to DeepSeek models, but still these models show that they can really challenge the state of affairs in the world. Here's another chart that shows on different scale how these models perform, and of course the commercial models still are better, but every now and then, so after new open source model catches up in some way. And we see that even commercial institutes are creating open small models. So this is quite an old slide. Right now you can add one to every of these models, but this is happening. Yes, and there will be slides for running it on Olam and LM Studio. So buckle up, we'll get there. Yeah. So, and this is reasonable because not everyone wants to build a warehouse where we can set up the big model like 70 billion parameters to work. In many cases, these small models are good enough to perform tasks that we need. And there are other advantages. So smaller models are easier for fine-tuning. You can run them on-premise. This is very important. You are not sending all your data to US or China or anywhere who hosts your model. You can keep them under your desk. And with smaller models, you really can do this under your desk because you can just buy a MacBook and run these models on it without any issues. So I believe this is why these models are so important and why we see more and more of them. Another thing about open models is they are uncensored. And of course, it's sometimes desirable quality and sometimes not. But if you're doing things like a project that was handling disinformation, you don't want these models to do what commercial models do, that are open to wider audience, so they don't want to, have issue with anyone. You want these models to be racist or to be misogynistic or do anything, because if you are looking for disinformation or hate speech, you don't want your report to say that there were some complaints about other people living in the flat. Yeah, you want to get all the dirty details. Who are these people? Is there a racial issue or anything like that? So you want to have, unfiltered stream of information in some cases. And open models, not all of them, but many open models have versions that are uncensored, and Bielik is one of them. The model that you see online on the website, it's censored because it's open for people. We don't want this model to throw weird things. However, for certain cases, if you are a government or doing things like that, or basically checking even your brand awareness, you sometimes want to have unfiltered data, and this is what uncensored models can provide. So fast forward to May 25th, and something important happened, and it was in France. And it was Nielsen that officially included Bielik in his presentation. The Bielik got official support from NVIDIA ecosystem, and also he told us he told the world about plans of running Bielik in Perplexity as one of the options. So it's quite an achievement, I think, in the year and a half, basically, from getting model who hallucinates about chickens. The community got to the stage with Jensen talking about their model and about how performant it is, and that it's commercial grade ready. Of course, by this occasion, the part of the Bielik community got there, and they decided to run a few new models. So this is new stuff that we got this year. And here's things get a bit tricky, because we got version 3 models and also new version 2 model. And the idea is that version 3 models are even smaller. They are 1.5 billion and 4.5 billion parameter models. And they are built on different architecture. They are built on Qwen. The original Bielik was built on Mistral architecture, but community decided to follow with the 2.6 version with the 2-line, because it's not a drastic change, and they will introduce the fully fledged 3.0 model that has more parameters, I believe, later this year. So I know that it's in the phase of final tests, and it's really cool and it's really performant. But you may notice that there are some version of 2 that are newer than version 3 model, and this is because of this discrepancy in scale. But basically, they decided to create to open models that you can run on a mobile phone, and they work pretty well. Not sure about exact details. I think that just they were looking for this. I can only talk for the smaller models, but the reason for changing architecture to Qwen, I believe it was just better on the smaller scale, or better to fine tune. It's an experimental knowledge, so basically the team was testing a lot of options and decided that for this particular project, Qwen was better in some regards. So what the new line of 2 Bielik 2 models, which started with 2.5, got was structured output. It got tool use, and it got experimental reasoning. So all of this stuff was packed in 2.5. So actually, that is a bit bigger change than usually for the minor version bump, which made Bielik basically ready for using in agentic setups, and really interesting things are happening with Polish reasoning, because it's the model reasoning is purely in Polish. Sorry, Roberto, can you elaborate on the question on token verification? I think I lost you here. And in the meantime, I follow up with version 3. What happened with version 3 was that they built actually very performant models. And again, the story repeated that Bielik community created very small models that were way more performant than way bigger models. So here's comparison table for 4.5 billion and 1.5 billion, and you can see that they are, well, it's not the best performance in the world. Of course, you can't run it like the regular chat model, but the intention of creating these models was to create something that's easy to fine tune, and to make it even easier to adapt these models in commercial settings with fine tuning and other adjustments. But basically, you can see that they are again challenging the models that are much bigger than them. And this is what happens when you have good architecture, basically, and good data set. Also, what they did was opening 2 technical papers. So if you are interested in the details, in the technical details, you can go into these papers. There is a paper about version 2 and version 3. There is also a paper about first version of Bielik, but I believe these 2 are right now the most important papers about Bielik, and they give you a lot of information about what happened during the training process and some architectural choices, etc. You can, of course, always join the community. It's open. You can join Discord channel and ask questions around. There are a lot of people that will be more than happy to talk about all the details that I may not know, to answer your questions. Yes, you can do that, but for the verification, we have another thing. But yeah, it's based on the small model. So just a few picks from these technical papers, because I was asked to give you some details for nerds. So I picked 3 techniques that I think are most prominent and kind of universal. So first technique is data hunt. Maybe not technique, but basically what they did to make this data set better, because there was a question about training Bielik on unstructured data, and this is what happened. But it wasn't just just taking the Speaklish data set as is. They decided to do some proper data engineering, and it was quite elaborated, actually. So the challenge was to take this, at the time, 41 million documents from Speaklish, and sieve out the gems to train the model, because the better the data, the better the model will be. And there were basically three stages. The first stage was some basic hygiene, something you would do in any case. So fixing broken encodings, removing the obvious junk, because the data in Speaklish is often picked by crawlers, so there may be a junk. So they did just first sieving version to remove all of those. Also, and this is the place where a lot of elaborate techniques are happening, but not all of them are official, is anonymizing all datasets. So we don't want to train models on private emails or something that may be caught by crawlers in the data from forums or stuff like that. So there are custom algorithms built by Bielik team. These are sadly closed for now, but they are used to anonymize datasets, and they do a great job doing that. So after this first iteration, there was a quality detector stage, and basically Bielik team decided to create the classifier of their own. The technique is applied in other models, but they had to create this for Polish, like with everything in this model, and this is very important. And I think this is something important to keep in mind, and that if you are basically building your model for your language, there is a whole tool set that you have to recreate, starting from aforementioned test suits to things like these tools that help you prepare data or do other stuff. And this is also where community is very important, because in order to train documents quality classifier, the team had to label 22,000 of documents, ranking them by the quality. Also, they had to do some work on finding features that will be good to train XGBoost classifier. So they of course did the standard stuff like word frequencies and other features, but also they did more innovative stuff. Like they noticed that Markdown looks structured, but it may be a garbage. So they created special measurements that would say if this Markdown has good quality. Also, there is another project in Poland, Stylometrics, that you can find the link on the bottom left corner, that also prepares some measurements, and Bielik team extended it a bit with their own measurements. Basically, they ended up with a classifier that allowed them with a very high accuracy to classify the data by the quality on automatic basis. So you can see the confusion matrices for the classifier, and it worked really well. How many people there's? I don't know the exact number. The beauty of Bielik project is that there are tons of parallel projects where someone just says, "Hey, let's do this," and random group just does something, and I cannot follow everything in there. However, the main character is Adrian Gwoździej behind the data, and actually he's doing a lot of this stuff on his own, like training these models and doing a lot of things that are described in the paper are basically one-man job in some cases. He's basically all of the Bielik trainers are pretty amazing persons. They do all of this in their free time, and they work like an army of developers sometimes. The last thing, when they had a good quality of data set, was just to balance it. So they split it into categories, and they use some very basic classifier to just pick the good balance of data to train the model. Another thing that Bielik team wanted to do was to start with Mistral architecture, but buff it up a bit. The reason is that Bielik team defines small language model as something that you can run on commercial cards. So you don't need to have a warehouse to run it. You can run it on a singular card. It may be an expensive card, but you can run it on a card that you can buy in the market. And Mistral at the time was a bit too small to make it work. Actually, there is a question about crowdsourcing in Bielik community. This is what's happening, and I'll show you a cool project that makes use of crowdsourcing a bit later on. So buffing up Mistral, the idea was depth of scaling. The team decided that this is the best way to do that. You can scale up models in many different ways, but if you are starting with certain architecture, you don't want to lose knowledge. It's hidden in its weights. So the team decided to create basically a system where you create a copy of the original model, then you cut certain layers on both ends of these copies, and then you combine them together, and then you do the training. So the idea is that these upper layers are becoming even more specific in abstract concepts, and lower layers give you a bit more space to do some internal representation, but you are doing kind of natural mix. It's a natural transplant that's not exploding your model if you are trying to train it. And with small models, the smaller you get, the harder it is to do something with this model without breaking everything on the spot. So this is the technique that's proven to be very useful in that case, and which still allows you to start with pre-existing architecture without losing all the computational power that went into building it. And the thing that happened in version 3, and I think it's one of the most pivotal things in this paper, basically, at least my favorite part, it was changing the tokenizer. There was a tokenizer apt4, which was a follow-up successor of apt3 used in the first model we talked about, and it has 32 tokens, but it's trained primarily on Polish, which means that when we are representing Polish documents, it's much more efficient. So the model is more efficient, the reasoning in Polish is more efficient, the performance is better, and basically you can pack a lot of more information in a smaller window. So you are not burning your context window to underrepresent your language because you are using the original tokenizer. So as you can see by the comparison on the Constitution of Republic of Poland, the drop is roughly 50% when you use Polish tokenizer in the number of tokens. So it's something worth doing, but one does not simply swap tokenizer, because basically it's like taking your existing brains and trying to teach them to reason in Chinese, for example. Yeah, it's a big challenge. So you cannot do this randomly because you would break the whole model. So there are tons of techniques that you can try to use to manipulate vocabulary of the tokenizers to create the new tokens for your language. And the team tested 7 of them and decided that they will use the following algorithm. So basically you take your 2 tokenizers, and first thing you do is just checking where there are common words and how they are coded, because there are international words, there are some words that will be in both vocabularies, so you just copy them, so model has some ground information on certain words. Then you go to the remixing phase, so you want to create new representations for existing tokens, and you do that by combining tokens that are similar to the tokens in your tokenizer. So basically you do a huge search, and for each token you are looking for similar tokens in the other tokenizer, and then you try to combine them, but you are not doing just softmax on everything you found. You are just picking the few best tokens and combine only them. And basically this is what happened in terms of combining weights and building, doing a transfusion of the tokenizer, but also the team again used depth scaling to make the model bigger. But also here in the step 3, they started adding additional layers on both ends of the model, and they decided to do a few training phases where they were training only these new additional layers. The idea was to give the model a bit of buffer first to learn more about new representations in the new tokenizer, before trying to train everything from scratch, because this would most probably explode the models. And from reports of trainers, this is what happens when you go to the such a small scale, like 1.5 billion or 4.5 billion parameters. So there were basically it's a clockwork to fine-tune these weights and do this brain transplant kind of to the model without breaking everything up and keeping the performance of the model. And it was worth it because, as you can see by the previous benchmarks, the new models are really cool and really performant. So if you're interested with the stuff like this, please really go through these papers. They are open or active. You can download them, read them, and they are very, very interesting papers on building local models. So there was a question about Olama and LM Studio. So there is a section how to run this model, and there is a lazy and ambitious version. Olama and LM Studio being on the lazy end. So basically, all models are available on Hugging Face, so you can just plug and play, whether you're Olama fan or LM Studio. It works the same way. It suggests you the best versions of the model to your hardware, and you can just talk with your Bielik in minutes, depending on your Wi-Fi connection. You can also, if you're very lazy, you can just go to Bielik AI and talk to it. Interesting part is that it's pretty performant in other languages too. And we even learned that it's better in speaking in Czech language than Czech model itself. Part of the reason is that Bielik is trained not only on Polish language, it has a nice mixture of few other languages because it turned out to make the model more performant. Yeah, but it's interesting info that there are some local models that are not as performant as pure Polish model, but it's just the quality of architecture and all the stuff that you can get from these documents and try on your own. So you can go to the website and talk with Bielik after signing in. There are also some Polish providers that are providing APIs for Bielik. So if someone does work in Polish and wants to have a safe way of running in, Sherlock is one of them by Cloudflare. It's a company located in Poland, so it's not going anywhere further. But also you can find right now you can find implementations, I believe, even on IBM Watson or Azure. The Bielik is basically populating popular cloud platforms. And if you want to be ambitious, you can try running it on your own in your favorite tools, or just running the code. And you have two sources: Spicklish Hugging Face, which is the source of benchmarks, dataset, models, and you can find the newest models there and play with them and all versions of those. So you can just spin up VLLM and go with it. And there is also a very cool GitHub account where you get cookbooks in the form of Google Colabs. So you can also try a lot of solutions that were written by the community. So you won't be starting from scratch, but there is no problem in running it in your Google Colab if you want to just spin up your code and exchange it for Spicklish. So basically, you open your Google Colab. Just remember to give access token to the Hugging Face to the instance, so it may be able to log in, and you just use it as any other model. It's fully instruct models compliant, so basically nothing weird happens there. You are just using it like any other model. For the newest models, there are also instructions on turning on reasoning and more experimental features, so it's sometimes important to check the documentation to see how to make this work. And these models are quantized, so I decided to put it in to the slides. I know the crowd is more technical here, but just in case, if you don't know what the Q means in these models, the Q stands for quantization, which means that language models are basically tons of floats, billions of them to be exact. And you don't need the whole float representation to make model performant. You can just cut it a bit, just not make it too hard, so you don't want to break the model. So it's not just simple rounding up the weights, but you can prepare versions of the models that are using smaller presentations and still work. And by Bielik, you get everything starting from pure models to quantization on zero, which means that they are just ones and zeros, nothing in between. The Q4 and Q8 are basically very performant. With Q8, you usually don't see any changes. With Q4, depending on the context, you may see some performance drops, but also we heard about projects that were using Bielik for document classification, and actually the quantized versions were better than full model on these tasks. So don't be afraid. Using quantized model doesn't mean you are using the inferior product. Usually it's just as good as a full one. And to close it up, the project isn't closing, it's only growing. Right now the community has, I believe, roughly 3,000 people or something like that, and it's getting only more popular, more projects using it, more adaptation. There was trip of Bielik team to China, for example, to exchange knowledge with their data scientists. And there are new projects starting, and this is why community is so important, so you can do that. One of the projects is Suika. I believe there was a related question. Suika is another bird, the one on to the right. And Suika is a guardian model, which means that if you want to set up Bielik somewhere and you know that it's not censored model, you don't want it, for example, in the school setup for Bielik to start throwing some jargon or giving you weird advice. So you want to have a model that will check the output and iron it out, and it will also work as a filter for the input. So you may check if someone is trying to do some prompt injections or to hack your model, or just wants to ask your model something that's not allowed. It doesn't have to be so extreme. You may don't want to follow with the Chevrolet situation where their model was open for prompt injection and sold car for $1. So for any reason, if you want to put something between your model and users, and you should, because it's very bad idea to open large language models, no matter which ones, to the public without any safeguards. The Suika is a model for Polish that is doing that. So this is one of the initiatives that spun up from Bielik. You can check it on guard.bielik.ai. And also the value of understanding Polish culture and language and Polish context to classify documents, to do the work that AI does, just on a slightly better or sometimes way better level than other models, transfers to other modalities. So just a bit of context, żurek is a traditional Polish soup made from fermented rye flour. We like to ferment a lot of stuff, and rye flour is one of them, and we make soup out of it, and it's delicious. I know that for some cultures it's not, it sounds frightening, but if you're in Poland, please try it. It's really cool, and it's often served in the bread. The reason I'm telling you that is to give you some understanding on how far from original context the models get when you go to modalities. Right now it's better, but at some point I think it was Stable Diffusion recreations of żurek. Right now it gets closer to soup, so it's not as bad, but still for some models, if you try to make them use to analyze pictures, they are a bit off with this information. So for example, they classify żurek as a potato soup and stuff like that. And this is why the Bielik committee decided that as important as building a language model is important to build a multimodal model, but for that you need data. So there is I promise you crowdsourcing project, and this is one of those. There is Citizen Bielik, which basically does a lot of stuff in one place. The idea is that we can take pictures with descriptions or with audio descriptions, and we are building data set for multimodal versions of Bielik. But also what it does in the meantime is creating an archive for Polish culture, for many weird Polish things that are not usually, I don't know, Instagram or LinkedIn material. So again, just as when I started, I told you that these models not only give you sovereignty, but also are kind of the way of transferring your culture to some digital version. It turns out that projects that rise from it are even doing more of that. So it's just so nice to see that it's combining not only something useful from the tech perspective, but also that, yeah, well, actually we had a few Polish social networks and they did so well. Well, actually Poland was very tricky about that because we had some social media that were, for example, the MSN Messenger never was popular in Poland. We had our own communicator that's still alive, but of course was at some point was removed by Facebook, and we had few of those. But it never ends well. Basically, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram are too big to compete with. We can compete on the AI and model infrastructure, but not on social media apparently. Yeah, and as for the new stuff, the Bielik right now is in version 2.6, and it's a very cool version. If you want to do something with Bielik, I strongly recommend this version. It's amazing how huge of the jump is between 2.3 and 2.6. It's basically cleaner data, some better architecture choices, etc. Yeah, and basically this wraps up my story for today. I hope it was interesting, and I hope this transfers as well to other cultural settings as I hope it does, because I really try not to make it about Polish culture, but the ways of transferring your culture into your models and why it's important. If you're interested in talking with me, here is my LinkedIn and LinkedIn of my Bielik consulting co-founder on the left side. And thank you. And I think we have some time for questions.
Hello everyone again, and thank you for all the questions we had so far. Thank you for being so active. But yes, we still have time for other questions if you still have them. So we can wait for a few minutes. So maybe you can post them. Or maybe you want to talk to us. So just push raise hand button and then you can talk to us. So maybe it will be even easier than type your questions. Meantime, I just want to remind you that until the end of this week, you will receive the mailing with slides and video and feedback form. So yeah, you will have all of this. And thank you so much for your comments of your thank yous. And yeah, we have a few comments that you can reply on.
Yeah, so thank you for the kind words, and I'm happy that you find the project interesting. Links to the technical papers, I'll send them right now to you. I'll just send you links directly to PDFs. So here is version 3 information and version. Oh, I'm sending it only to you, Diana.
Yeah, I will resend it because now you're saying the sending is just to me.
Yeah. So the other one I fixed. So yeah, and also Speaklish links. So the data set is here, and the model on Hugging Face is here.
And I will also send these links to in our mailings. So maybe people who couldn't join us today online, they will still have them. And since I don't see much other questions, I just wanted to thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience and this information. I hope it will be very valuable for our participants. Oh, actually, we have a question. Could you explain the performance of Bielik and different fields of knowledge, like lawyer?
Yeah, so the thing is that if you want to, if you are getting deeper into with your projects, with what do you want to automate with AI, you are getting more and more into subtle differences. So sometimes you need understanding of the model of the sayings, and still the biggest models don't understand all niche Polish sayings or cultural references that we all know as a Polish people because we are watching the same movies and etc. But models don't get it, and the popular models, because they don't have enough exposure or to this niche information. So for different fields of knowledge, of course it differs from field to field, and as I said before, sometimes you can just use the most popular model today and go with it. But if you got to go into things like a very specialized language, and legal documents are that kind of documents where you really need your model to understand your language in the best way it can, with archives, with uncommon words, etc., etc. And basically, you can think of it as what kind of information your model is compressing with its weights. And if it's a huge model trained on multilingual data and mostly on English, most probably it won't learn details of Polish jargon, of legal jargon, for example. But if you have model that's trained strictly on your language, there is just bigger chance that it will understand this. So the performance on legal documents is much better. The performance on qualifying emails or requests from customers is much better. And again, as I said before, it's not the difference like, I don't know, that OpenAI performs on 50% accuracy and Bielik 100%. These are percents or points after the period. But if you are having thousands or hundreds of thousands of customers, you see this difference. Yeah. So the things where you need to understand what your customer wants, what information he or she tries to convey. This is where Bielik is just the best choice, and also it's smaller, so you can run it on safely on your local infrastructure. And this is another place why having local Polish model is great for legal entities or for politics office, because you are not sending your data anywhere. You can easily check the data of your clients without breaching any agreement, because it will be run on the local infrastructure without moving the documents anywhere. So you are not breaching your agreements with clients that you won't expose documents of your client to other entities. And if you want to have that and a good understanding of your language, your options get even more limited, because you don't have OpenAI anymore, for example, for that. So you cannot use the best model, commercial model available, because you'll be breaching your contract, because you'll be sending your data to US or somewhere. And if you try to use one of the open models, they are considerably worse than Bielik in terms of competition on this field. So these are the generic rule of thumbs, I believe, that show where Bielik is so useful. I'm reading through the new messages that came in the meantime. Yeah, thank you so much again for the kind words. And yes, I strongly recommend trying these open models and fine-tuning them, because right now it's doable. Basically, there was I think even by Karpati, there was a analysis that you can train GPT-2 model with $8,000 currently. So it's another cool thing that these models are becoming so cheap to create and so performant on the small scale that you can really create your own pet projects and play with them. There are some people who about the question of collaboration in Polish and in English. Yeah, in that case, the most of the collaboration happens in Polish actually. So there is a lot of contextual knowledge here. You can of course go in and go with English, and people will be perfectly happy to talk in English. But for well, it's the same as with English model. Yeah, it's what we are aiming here is not because the in general models grammars of different languages is pretty good, and Polish has pretty good representation in internet, so they are getting more and more of this data. So it just happens, and also some of the companies like OpenAI, for example, uses considerably larger Polish data sets in their training than aforementioned 0.09% in Llama 3. So we are not aiming for basics, but more for these minuscule details. And this is something we are aiming to get the natives' understanding of the language. So this is what we are looking for. So this could be hard. However, there are a lot of things that are not so detailed and not so subtle in decision making. So there are projects like getting better algorithm for training models or getting better classifier or stuff like that. And so it's completely, I believe, language independent. So probably evaluation of details of Polish model will be hard without knowing Polish if you'd like to work on this project, but there will be a lot of stuff where you can really make a change and without knowing Polish.